Great. Yeah, so thanks for taking the time to speak with us. I'm Naomi. I'm a colleague of Otto's, and um, we're working on a report right now at Center for an Urban Future talking about low-income entrepreneurship, specifically NYCHA entrepreneurship. So talking about how there's a lot of aspiration among NYCHA residents to run businesses, and we see a lot of that happening sort of informally in public housing apartments, but not really like there's a lot of hurdles to actually create a formal business and run a business, obviously, even during normal times. So we would love to talk with you about we know that the New York Public Library has some entrepreneurial programs. So we'd love to talk about what kinds of programs you have, if you know of any, if there are NYCHA residents that take advantage of your programs, if you have like a rough estimate, what those programs look like. And we'll get to how everything has changed during COVID, but we'd love to just kind of get a general sense of usually what they look like.
Sure. Do you want me to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think one of our primary programs is the startup competition. And we've been running that for about, I think, 12 years at this point. And we are actually just wrapping up the 2020 with our plans being due. We really don't ask people if they are NYCHA residents. Mm-hmm. I know our consultant, we use a consultant to run the competition. He has reached out to people within NYCHA to help promote the competition, to get it in front so that residents are aware that they have this program. Because I think, as you've pointed out, there's a lot of potential there, a lot of opportunity, and they really need the guidance. But we don't specifically ask, are you a NYCHA resident or anything along those lines. Our funders, we were first funded by the City Foundation, and now we're being sponsored by the Bank OZK, and their mandate is to serve lower income people. So that is who we're trying to reach out to, but we're open to everyone. What we do capture is what is your zip code, what zip code are you from, and what is your income. And I just went through quickly, and the participants this year, and this is all self-reporting, we have no way of following up on this. There were 30% of participants said they earned less than $16,000. And about 64% said they earned less than $65,000. So I don't know, that's the mandate of our funders. So somewhere in there, I'm sure we're reaching people who are in public housing. I would say what we do in our competition, because it's open to people from a wide variety of backgrounds, that we try, and we have a little prize that you get, but our mission is more to, help people understand what goes into starting a business. Excuse me one second. So I think to that, we offer workshops, we offer free resources, everything we offer is free. So we're guiding people through all of the components, all of the steps of putting a business plan together. Madeline works, she's a whiz with all of our electronic resources. So her connection to the participants is helping them to understand how what the library offers can help them start a business, and that it's not enough to just say, I make great cupcakes and and I'm going to start a business. Like, there's a lot more to build a sustainable business. Right. And I think what we found is that, and what I've heard back from people is, they join it a couple of times. They join the first year and they have no idea what they're getting themselves into. And then they come back the following year because they feel, they have a better handle on it. and it's a learning process, and they're often just in it to learn how to do a business plan and build a sustainable business.
Right. And that's very true, that we have people who are sort of repeat entrants. And sometimes they'll enter, you know, more than one year. They might enter 2 or 3 years. And usually their plan improves over those over those years. Not always, but most people get the idea that they have to, you know, do some of the research for a business plan. They need to do some market research, some industry research. And, you know, they get what it is. It's to me, the biggest challenge is for them is to actually get it all done. And, you know, we have a lot of people who enter, but not as many, a much smaller number actually submit plans. So I think.
Why do you think that is? Like, what kind of specific barriers do you think that keep people?
I think people's lives are just busy, and they have families, they have jobs, and you know, they're not free to spend hours putting their plan together. Right. So I think that's really the biggest barrier, is probably time and resources. But there is also a barrier, I think, in terms of the education, because we've found that even though we get plans sometimes from entrants that have a good idea, they obviously don't have the skills in terms of putting the plan together to have it be a really presentable plan. You can sort of tell from problems in the language or the grammar, or, you know, there are just things that are challenges. And, you know, we can understand it, and we would, you know, we might be able to say we see the value in the plan, but, you know, it's not necessarily a plan that a lender would give anyone some money for. So that's the kind of thing I think a lot of people are up against.
Right. And do you think, you know, it's obviously difficult for anyone to start a business, but do you think there are specific challenges faced specifically by NYCHA residents? I mean, I understand that you don't have the data on who specifically lives in public housing, but could you think of any that might be any challenges that might make it tougher for NYCHA residents than other aspiring entrepreneurs from low-income backgrounds?
I would think access to technology. I think a simple internet connection often is a challenge. We've had, when we first started this program, we were very specific in letting people know that if you don't have a computer at home, if you don't have an internet connection, you can come and use one of our computers, or even those basic computer skills sometimes people don't have, and we help people navigate, you know, figuring how to simply fill out the application for the program. I've sat with many of people and just kind of helped them, walk them through how to do it. I think, I'm not sure if you're aware that they had, that the City Foundation had sponsored an entrepreneurship program with Fast Track with NYCHA residents. And I can send you the report from that. It was about 2000, I think the report is from 2015, 2016.
Okay.
And it focuses on a lot of, you know, people do have, you know, they offered classes. I didn't get a chance to reread it, but it was along the lines of they would offer classes, but people just didn't have the discipline or the time to be as disciplined as you need to be if you're starting a business. Our competition is, one of the requirements is you must attend 3 out of 4 technical workshops. And the technical workshops essentially give you a broad overview of doing market research, presenting your plan, and the financials that you need to have for a business plan. And all you have to do, and you're given 3 options in 1 month to attend, and the number of people who even that is a challenge to do. And if you want to start a business, you need to be able to do their requirements. You need to have follow through, and I think that's what people learn the first year they're in the competition, and we really try and reinforce that with people. They have a business plan development schedule that we share with them, and they get weekly reminders saying, okay, this is week 12, this is what you should be doing in researching your business plan, in writing your business plan. You should be meeting with your advisor. We give them a whole list of organizations in the city that they can meet with to talk over their business plan, talk about their business idea. Is it a viable business? But they actually have to put those tools to work themselves. And even now we have the plans for this year's competition they're due tomorrow. And I'm getting all of these last minute emails from people. I didn't do this, I didn't do that. How do I do that? And, and this I think is a little bit of a different situation, the present situation we're in, but that's actually the normal, is that there are those last minute people, but we have had plans submitted already. So I think that's really encouraging. And I think if nothing else, this time period has given people time to work on it, if nothing else, and really kind of put their dream into practice.
Yeah, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. There's the argument that entrepreneurship could be an important pathway to economic opportunity. Do you think that that's the case for NYCHA residents or low-income New Yorkers in general? And why is that the case?
I think that entrepreneurship gives people, it empowers people, it gives them the opportunity to control their destiny. And I think that's what draws people to starting their own business, is I get to be the boss, and I get, not realizing that means all of the work that's involved with all of that. And I think that's what, people in our competition go through this process where they write the plan, it's reviewed, and then it goes to a panel of judges from a lot of the small business service providers. And they look at the plan and they have questions where, you're not paying yourself a salary in year 1. How do you plan on living that way? So I think for many people who are doing things like, I think one winners one year started baking cakes in her kitchen, and she did win second prize, but she was able to take this. It wasn't supporting her at that time, her family necessarily at that time, but it was providing supplemental income and maybe a way to pay a couple of other bills aside from her side hustle. But our judges saw potential in that business and ways that they can support her. But I think making sure that people understand that putting a business together, they're not in it alone. And I think that's what we try and make them aware of. There are resources in the city that can help them get this done, whether it's the Department of Small Business Services, whether it's the library, whether it's an SBDC. There are so many resources that people are just completely unaware of. And I think that's one of our, what we try and push, to make people aware of all of the different opportunities that they can take advantage of.
How do you do that specifically? How do you make people aware of these things?
Go ahead, Maddie.
As Anne mentioned, we work with a lot of different partners, especially our judges. And as representatives of a number of the small business development centers in the city, they are all providing assistance to small businesses in each of their locations. And then they serve as judges in our competition. So they promote the competition among their clients, and we promote their services. So we're sort of trying to keep up a network of the small business help that people can get and let them know about that. And then we link to a list of the business advisors, which are those people that people need to speak with and get help, get someone to look at their plan. But as they're developing their plan, we say they have to meet with a business advisor. So they're getting a little bit of help from someone who knows what a business plan should look like and who's looking at business plans all the time. So they're getting that exposure.
Right. Are you aware, I'm thinking about outreach to like public housing in particular. Do you know if there is outreach from the library system to public housing, or how people, like for example, we were talking about technology, some people don't have computers at home, so maybe some people don't get email, like a lot of outreach is done over email, for example. Is there outreach that is like kind of specifically catered to people who live in public housing for library services?
I think
I'm not aware of any, but I don't know.
we have 90 locations, so at the branch level, they do work with different populations depending on what their neighborhood is. And that's how some of the participants in our competition, I mean, we're in Midtown, but one of our previous winners was in her branch in Harlem taking her kids to a story hour, and saw the flyer and then entered and ended up winning first prize, and has a bit, well, she opened her business, her brick and mortar business, this past February. So it's those connections, like making our colleagues in other parts of the library that are in the smaller neighborhood branches aware of what we've got going on, and they feed people to us.
And do you know if anything more would be needed to do outreach to NYCHA, like either more staff to like physically go to locations and put up flyers, for example, or anything of that nature? Are you aware of anything specifically? Or funding?
Whether I'm not sure if our outreach department actually goes to NYCHA housing, but I know that they do things, kids programs and things, but
okay, sure.
You know,
sure.
I think a lot for libraries, it's a lot of somebody's in the neighborhood, you know, if they have the time to go and put that flyer up over there or make people aware, that's what they, you know, they tend to do.
But to me, the big challenge is if you're trying to reach out to NYCHA and the people there don't have the technology, they don't have the internet, they don't have the skills, those are all barriers. So you have to somehow deal with those barriers. You can't just do one of those things. I think it's a combination of maybe money and people that you need to figure out what's the problem, how do you address it, you know, what's the best way to get internet, maybe. Who's going to fund internet in, you know, all these houses, 100,000 people in housing projects live in the city? I mean, I think it's some ridiculously high number, but I don't know that those buildings actually have good internet or good broadband access. You know, so some people may have access through their phone or something, but they may not well have computers even. And we've had people who try to do their business plan on a phone, but it's really not that easy to do that kind of a project without a computer. And so those are all challenges. Now, the library has made an effort to get hotspots into people's hands, but they focus on students. So for students, especially now with the pandemic, I think they were trying to help people with tablets and things like that while they had to do something to get school, I think this was before the DOE was actually doing something to try to help kids get, computers to do their schoolwork. But I think that's more of a priority for the library than helping people start a business.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Otto, did you want to ask any questions?
Yeah, so I mean, we touched on this a bit, but how have you all, I mean, the industry and business library been, responding to the pandemic in terms of like transitioning programs online? Are you aware if, I mean, I know I saw there's like, you guys have like video conferencing for entrepreneurs now, but have you, and again, I know you don't all take collect data on who's NYCHA, but have you seen like a decline in the people participation in your programs? And like if so, do you know if any of this decline, or would you guess that this decline has also been like seen in NYCHA households as well?
No, we actually we closed on March 13th, and we actually also moved our building. So, but within 2 weeks we were in 2 weeks we were up and running. We had webinars going. We had the consultation with a librarian, which has been very successful. And that you don't necessarily need to have a computer. You can call in on a phone. We will do it both ways, and people are saying, I need to start this business. I need to, we're getting a lot of very specific questions about either starting a business or keeping their business going, like creating mail lists and things along those lines. Our program attendance actually has gone up. We've had some business programs that have attracted about 1,000 people. We have our career programs today. We had, a program with over 700 people attending. So all of our programs have been very well received. And I think there's no way to tell who is actually attending. But we are recognizing that the internet, having reliable internet, or a computer that you're not sharing with your children or something like that, is a little bit of a barrier. So we try and do it so you can just call in and listen if you want to do that, or we also offer them record up on our website, which if your only free time is 1 o'clock in the morning, you can just click on and watch the program. It's not live, but you do still get the content and the information. So we're trying to do, meet the needs of people, recognizing that they do have more free time on their hands, but at night might not necessarily be in business hours. And I think that's also a barrier, is that if you, even when it's not the pandemic, it's, I'm working all day, I'm taking care of the kids at night, so my free time really begins at 10. Like being able to offer something for someone to get our information and our content is really something we're working on as we move forward. And there was one other point I thought of in here. As far as getting information, we updated all of our web pages for the Business Center on financial resources, from help with utilities, help with credit cards. We offer financial counseling with volunteers who can help you, just talk through, I've lost my job, I've got all these bills, I don't know what to do. And we've had reviews from people who said, thank you so much. This simple half-an-hour call helped me get straight in my head. I called my credit card company. I was able to restructure this. We have our librarians are doing consultations. We have career coaching, resilience coaching, again, that you can participate in either by Zoom or with a phone call, so that it's open to a lot of different people. And also our business, we still have our business partners. We're making sure that people are aware of the services that our business partners office offer, putting updates on the latest programs from the city, state, and federal governments. Just updating things continually so that people are able to keep track of this ever-changing situation. So
That's really good to hear. Yeah. Would you happen to like know any of any or have any numbers available? And like, I guess you probably wouldn't have it like across the board on like increased attendance for your events, but do you have like any specific, I guess, programs where you're like, oh, you know, we're seeing an increase by, you know, X number of people since the pandemic or since we've gone digital? Would would that sort of information be available? Or
I think the library president had, I'm not sure who he sent it to, but I thought I had seen some numbers in an email message about the libraries. It may have gone out to the public about our attendance.
Mhm.
And because he also talked about attendance at programs that it was, you know, much higher. Because when we only started doing webinars basically after the pandemic. We weren't doing them before. So you're comparing, you know, programs that were done in a physical location, which was often limited by, you know, the room size. So if you had a room that could fit 50 or 60 people, that was the most attendance you could actually get for a program. And now that we do it online, you can get 100 or several hundred people, depending on what technology you're using. So you know, you can have much bigger audiences with virtual events. That's clear. And I think that's an interesting thing the library is learning through this whole experience, is that it's so much more efficient in a way to hold things virtually than in person. I'm not saying virtual is always the best thing, but if you want a lot of people, that's the way to go. I think that's clear. Would you agree?
Yes, I think it's because if I live in the Bronx, I don't have to take an hour-long train ride to make it to a 6 o'clock program.
Right.
I can now do it from my living room or wherever I am at the moment. So I think that is, I think, a silver lining of this situation is that we're learning new ways to serve the public that we may not have tried if we hadn't been forced into it by the situation.
yeah, Madeline, if the president, I guess, released specific numbers on like the entrepreneurship programs or anything like that would be accessible to us, be great data information to have. So
I'll see if we have any. I know that our usage has gone up because it's been commented on, but specific, like from web page hits and things like that. So if I'm able to get anything, we can certainly send it on to you.
Wonderful.
I mean, the one thing that we definitely could send you is the numbers for our small business webinars, which is a new thing that we started with the pandemic. And I think we have those numbers, right, Ann? In terms of the attendance at those programs. Helena probably has them, right?
We have them, yes, we have them.
Wonderful. I guess another question I would have is, you mentioned a lot the partnerships that you have with the small business organizations. I remember we were talking to someone from the Queens Public Library on Monday, and she mentioned that there was something that they were doing that had been in the works to create like a pathway, I don't know, partnership with NYCHA specifically. And I mean, I don't, exactly know like what that entails, like having a partnership with, public housing, but is that something for your entrepreneurship programs? Is that something that you would consider doing in the future, or like how would, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're here to help all New Yorkers. So that's, and I think we're especially, I think everything that's going on has exposed the great need for people, for us to help even the playing field. And that's what the library does. So doing a better job of reaching out to people who need our assistance, and perhaps whatever way we can to make it easier to access our resources. I think we were in one building, and I think it was a little intimidating to walk into something that was called the Science, Industry, and Business Library. I think a lot of people saw this building and they thought, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. And we're now going to be in a new location, and a location that's going to be serving all types of people, from children and teens to adults. So it really, I think, will make people more aware of our offerings, but also make us a little more accessible, not quite so intimidating. So I think that's a plus. And I think we would love to help people, however we can, to get their businesses started, because that's what we're here for, truly.
And my last question would be, you talked a bit about how entrepreneurship empowers people and gives them ability to control their own destiny. Do you also see entrepreneurship as a pathway to like long-term like wealth building and like public housing and like those communities, like as a real like means of like like long-term development, and versus just finding a job? Like, yeah,
I think that it is critical that people do more than just find a job, whether it's find a career, start a business. And I think that's a component that's lacking in a lot of the aspects of our society as a whole, is that people, I'm going to get a job and I'm going to stick to it, and they're not aware of all of the opportunities or how to realize their own potential. And I think just being pointed in the direction of all the different opportunities that are available to them is really, can only help people, whether it's build wealth, build a satisfying career, get their family on stable ground. I think all of these are important components of achieving that. That answers your question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, totally. Naomi, do you have any other questions?
No, I mean, I think we got everything. Yeah.
Okay, I'll send that report to you that I mentioned earlier, and hopefully that'll be some background, if nothing else, because it does talk about some barriers that they faced.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be really helpful. Great.
Okay, great.
Well, thank you guys so much for taking the time again to speak with us. It's been really helpful.
And, if you have any more questions, just shoot them over to us, and we'll see if, if there's more information we can find, if you need it, or, we'll see what we can do.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.